When my sister wins, I win at the Sisters Cafe.
This segment is brought to you by Dr. Sonya Hamm, empowering the financial future of women. Hey everybody, welcome to this segment of Sisters Cafe. I am so glad that you are here to join me today on Woman Crush Wednesday here at Power Influence Radio. First and foremost, like and share the video. Y'all don't be stingy. Share with your friends. Sharing is caring. Like and share this video with your friends, your family, and those people that you don't know. Be sure to go subscribe to the website at www.sisterscafeinc.com. Check out the podcast on Spotify. Go subscribe to that YouTube channel. And don't forget to join the Sisters Cafe Network. Be sure to go to the online store and grab you some cafe swag. We got t-shirts, books, mugs, and all of that. Go cop you one and cop your friends one too. And don't forget to send in those nominations for Woman Crush Wednesday. If there is somebody that you love that has impacted your life or has changed you or helped change you in any way, send in their name, your name, a picture of them, and the reason you are nominating them for Woman Crush Wednesday. And then you can see them. Every Wednesday, we will spotlight another woman for Woman Crush Wednesday here at Sisters Cafe. But y'all, I am so excited. Why, you ask? I'm glad you asked. Today at the cafe, we have the amazing Dr. Sonya Hamm. I had the opportunity to sit with her and talk with her, talking about the financial future of women. And also it's Women's History Month. We was talking about the past financial issues and struggles and laws for the women back in the day. So let's go ahead. We're going to jump into this conversation. Grab your cups and meet me at the table.
There's something deeper going on here. And so I asked a question. What makes rich people rich? What sets people, when you look around, you have people that are homeless, living on the streets. Then you have people that are, what we would consider to be barely scraping by. They're hardworking, but they're still living in, underserved conditions.
Right.
And then you have those that are living middle class and upper. And so I began to look at all of those different things. And I know that we don't serve an unjust or an unfair God. So I wanted to know what separated us, what caused us to manifest differently. And what I found out is we all have a different relationship with money, our perspective, our viewpoint of how we view, how we handle, how we manage money, and then even how we bring money into our lives. I don't like to use the word earn because you can receive money without working for it.
True.
And so in all of that, I was like, wait a minute, this is a money emotion. So I coined the term money emotion,
Nice.
Which represents the mental and emotional roadblocks that we have around money, which ultimately determines how we produce, how we show up in life.
Right. We were talking a little bit before we got on, but I was telling you how reading through, well, one, I listened to the podcast you put out, you emailed out to everybody who asked for it, but I didn't realize the relationship with money and how it affects me now. Mm-hmm. Now, back in the day, I would have to say I grew up okay. We have birthday parties at Disneyland and we went skiing and, whatever I wanted, I had. My mom did a certain amount and then grandma and grandpa, of course, took care of everything else because whatever I said I wanted, grandma and grandpa made sure that I had it. But we traveled everywhere. We stayed in hotels. I had new clothes. You know what I mean? It was never, even me living with my father, we traveled. We had a big house. We had 2 dogs, 2 birds, and a cat. It was just, I felt like we were okay. I didn't understand. I didn't even know anything about money. Let me just put it that way, except that I could get what I want when I wanted it. So that really, really hurt me later on. It wasn't until what I tried to do was duplicate that for my sons. And being a single mom with 3 sons, I can't duplicate what my mom and dad was doing and grandma and grandpa was doing. It. First of all, they had 2 incomes, you know, and it was just me and my sister. But I tried to, but I fell into debt, bad debt doing that. I made sure they had what they want. I would let them go in Walmart and get, you know, I wasn't looking at prices. They were just throwing stuff in the basket. And it wasn't until I think I was 37 and my job made me part-time.
Wow.
And I'm like, wait, hold on, God. I'm already robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's some nights I'm like, you know, I act like it's fun, but hey, we just gonna do hot dogs tonight. You know, it's a party. Because they don't understand I didn't have anything else. But when I got part-time, I'm like, whoa, I really didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. Budget? What? That's a bad word. Yeah. You know, no, that's a bad word, but I had to learn it. And in turn, so my relationship with money, which is just now what I'm learning, now that I'm in a different financial way, I still think the same. Whereas, you know, yes, I'm into investing now and different things like that, but I'd be like super scared. Like, wait, hold on, I'm not, let me just save it. Let me just save it. And that's kind of what I have in my head is save it for a rainy day. Save it for a rainy day. But like I said back there, when we were backstage, scared money don't make money.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that I want to do. So just kind of moving forward, you are the author. That was the first book I got. My husband gifted me that book when we met. The Girlfriend, Let's Get Rich and Live. You know, it's over there on the shelf. I meant to bring it out here, but I'll put a picture up of it. But you're also the author of Spirit-Led Wealth, Faith Codes, and the Ultimate Credit Score Playbook. You got a lot going on. The founder of the HD Women's Network. I'm at awe. I'm in awe, should I say. I'm in awe because that's a lot, and it's a lot for you to have taken the time to give back. Because you could have just kept all that for yourself, got your money, live rich, live saved, and go on about your business. But you decided to reach back and pull us as well. So what made you, what caused you, what catapulted you into this area?
Absolutely. And I want to go back to what you just shared. You know, this is the story over my 3 decades of doing this. Your story is my story. It's a lot of women's story. And one of the greatest disservices that we do to our children unknowingly, okay? And so let me preface this by saying the biggest tragedy in our society is that there is no, money is that subject that you have to pursue. It's not given to you. Nobody teaches you. Think about when you were going from grade school all the way up through college, you may have had how to balance your checkbook or whatever, but nobody really taught us how to manage money, how to maximize it, or how to multiply it. How does money work? Right. And so what ends up happening is what you explained. I did it with my children. We tried to give them everything, but we didn't give them the most important thing, which was the knowledge. It was the wisdom. And so then this is how generational patterns, because money is not a curse. It's not a curse because money is there, but it's generational patterns of thinking and our way of handling money that gets passed down from one generation to the next. And so then we end up creating debt because we don't know any other way to provide for our children or for life, for things that we want. Then moving to we as women, how did I get here? Well, I got here partly recognizing just in trying to manage for my family because a lot of money was passing through my hands. So I grew up like you. I didn't grow up in, disenfranchised situation. We always we traveled the world. I lived overseas for really the first 30 years of my life, you might as well say, the formative years. We lived overseas, but I didn't see money. We were just given what we needed, or we were given what we asked for, but nobody sat down and said, you need to set a budget, or you need to set up a savings plan, or you need to start investing or protect. None of those conversations were happening, right? And so now I have my own family, and my husband was in the military at the time, and they got called up to go to Iraq. And here I am with 3 small children, and the threat of, oh my goodness, this is war. What if he goes away and doesn't come back? Fear entered. How am I going to raise 3 children on my little, I was making good money with the government, but it wasn't enough money. All right. And so that was my first wake up call that made me as a woman recognize that by myself, I didn't own anything. And I wish I could say overnight no. And I want the audience to understand, when we're talking about your relationship with money, this is the stronghold that the Bible talks about. And it's the thing that holds you strong, because it's the way you've been conditioned. And so unless you're willing to totally go through a reprogramming, well, there was nobody around me to lead me in that reprogramming. So I had to figure it out on my own. And that's when I recognized, wait, I can help a whole lot of women. And just this week alone, leading up to us having this broadcast, I've talked to 5 different women who are going through life transitions, and their number one issue is finances.
Yes.
It's not having their own financial identity. And so I began to build mine. And like I said, it was a journey, and it's still a journey in progress. Let's be real. It was a journey of learning, unlearning and relearning, and unlearning and relearning. And I don't think that part of it ever stops, but it does get better. Once you get out of the weeds of what you've built debt wise and otherwise, it does get better. And so that's what motivated me, is when I recognized that, wait a minute, there's a whole lot of women in this situation. And if anything were to happen, to their, and it wasn't even the thought of my husband maybe dying, but he could have came back disabled. You understand? I teach what's called the 5 Ds of financial disruption. And of course, disability is also one of those. And so it made me look at myself as an individual, as a woman, and say, can you raise your kids if it was just depending on your income? What kind of lifestyle would you be able to give them? And so it's not, my take on it is not the getting rich. It is the getting safe and getting secure, and really tapping into what your life goals are.
Right. So is this is where money, Power Her Money stories came? Is it because you heard the different stories of different women? What inspired you to create Power Her Money Story?
Yeah, so Power Her Money Story was really just for this month of Women's History Month.
Okay.
And so for the entire month of March, and I don't know, because it's catching on. I've had so many inboxes.
Right.
Like, I love this Power Her Money story. And so I think we got, how you stumble on something? Well, I think this is one of those things we stumbled into, and we're going to have to keep going. But I thought about Women's History Month. And one of the facts that a majority of women do not know is that women did not have financial rights to own a bank account in their name or to own property in their name until 1974. I was 10 years old in 1974.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of women don't know that. You could not have a credit card in your name. You could not own a bank account in your name. and you could not own property in your name. It had to be in your father's name or your husband's name.
Why?
Because women didn't have rights. Women didn't have voting rights, right? You know, so when we think about it, women have always, this is really good. And this is what Power Her Money story is about, is waking women up to create their own, to get in touch with what their money story is, but then to create the money story they want, not the money story they've been given.
I like that.
And that's what it's about. But yeah, just that one history fact, when I share it, most women are like, what? Huh? You know, and I was like, yeah, go Google it. When did women have rights to own property or to have their own bank account? I mean, or even work outside of the home.
Around the corner. That was right. It was just now. Like,
yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So how did we survive then? Because there's a lot of single moms. There is no husband. There is no father. How did they get by?
So you remember, really prior, now we're getting into history, and I'll just say it, you know, date wise, prior to 1968, we were dealing with a whole nother set of not having rights and being separated, segregated, or whatever. And so this is why one of the segments that I do is I bring women from each generation, because we have 6 generations living right now. And it's amazing to hear the mindset from each generation based on their time frame coming up, because they were under a totally different society was totally different when these women were coming through. And so we hear about the Rosa Parks and we hear about the Madam C.J. Walkers. Those women were the exception. They were not the rule. They were the exception. They were the barrier breakers. And that's what we're looking for now. We need women to become barrier breakers again.
Okay. And I was listening to you with the generations. I laughed in my head because Grandma would always say, save your money.
Yes.
Get your money, put it in a savings account so you can grow your money. And then when I got older, I'm like, they just paid you 11 cents for the whole year while you got all that money sitting there. And I'm like, I don't think she understood that. She's thinking that she's making money because she left this amount of, money in the bank, in the savings account on purpose. And your interest for that was 11 cents for the whole year.
For the whole
and I'm
year.
like, I used to, Grandma, you're not making any money that way. Oh, yeah. She would tell me, and I mean, I could just hear it so clear, but I get it. It's because of how she was raised. They didn't get no bank accounts. They didn't have the money, period. So for her to say, I'm putting $10,000 or $20,000 away, she's doing real good, So I thought about that later on. I'm like, she did good. It was 10 of them, 5 of them all from Louisiana, born and raised. She was born and raised in Shreveport. And when they got older, 5 of the siblings moved to California and the other 5 stayed in Shreveport. So it was it's amazing just to hear us or to know where we are now versus all the things that I've heard that Grandma was trying to help me to get or to get to, only based on what she knew. And that's all we can do, though. But I think that's why this is important. I think this is why what you're doing is extremely important, because if we don't know, then we don't know.
We don't know. Right.
We don't. We can only go on real talk. We can't fault people for doing what they were raised to do.
That's right.
I can't look down on you because that's where you came from, or you can't, some people would say, well, you don't know because you had this, but don't fault me because that's how I was raised. So then when I turned around and tried to do the same thing to my children, for my children, I didn't know it was going to end up bad, but I feel like everything happens still for a reason, because had I not got let down to part-time, I don't know that I would have ever changed the way I was doing things.
Right. Absolutely.
But that made me. They gave me a $10,000 pay cut. And I had to figure it out with 3 growing boys. They were teenagers.
Oh, wow.
They eat the refrigerator on their own. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and I got 1 football player, I got 1 musician, I got 1, I don't even know what he is. He the preacher now. So that boy.
That's good.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that boy. But it was days. And I used to wonder, you know, as you said, I'm paying my tithes. I'm at school. I'm going to church every day. I'm 7 days a week. I'm not even exaggerating. We were at church 7 days a week for one reason or another. And, you know, I felt that obviously I had to because it was our church. That's where I was born and raised. But I'm like, God, this can't be.
Right.
And one thing I would like to address too, and I know that's not even on the questions, but I used to say to myself, okay, well, I'm going to go do this for the church. But I didn't have it at home. I remember going to make sure the church had toilet paper, but I was stopping at Jack in the Box to get toilet paper for my house.
Wow.
And as I got older, and wait, hold on, this can't be Jesus.
Right.
It's not Jesus, but that's not how we're taught. We're taught to give and give. Give unto the Lord. You take care of his business, and he'll take care of yours. You know, and that's what I did for the longest. I used to show up at church with no gas.
Wow.
Hoping that maybe somebody passed me $1 or something, you know, and I'm like, but I can't even hear the message because I'm so worried about how I'm gonna get home.
Right.
What I'm gonna feed the kids. They ain't got no toilet paper. You know what I mean? So I don't think that's God. Can you help us who don't understand that that's not God? I'm not going to fill this house and my house is empty. That's not what he meant by that. Can you help us?
Now you finna touch into us. Look, we'll be here for 2 or 3 hours because that's, you know, that's my whole thing. I was pastoring at the time. And, you know, and I would go to other conferences and different things. I wasn't raised in the church though. I wasn't raised in the politics of the church. Let me say it that way. We went to church, but you know, we wasn't in the leadership and in the inner. We just went to church.
Got it.
And so when I came into ministry and now I'm in a leadership position and I'm looking at the congregation and it's just certain things that I would not do or allow. Now, let me preface this. I do believe in tithing. I do believe in giving. However, I don't believe that tithing and giving are the 2 most important principles in the entire Bible. I believe that salvation is the most important thing that we can give anybody is salvation. Because if they have God first, then all of the other things will line up eventually if they're really seeking to please God. I think what the church did is we made tithing we made tithing into if you don't tithe, you're gonna go to hell, or we made it into a prosperity key and we left a whole lot of instructions out of it. So when you look at that scripture and you look at what God promises in tithing, and if you don't mind, I want to take just a minute and walk through it real quick.
Yes.
He says, bring the tithe into the storehouse. So we understand the principle, right? But remember the time and what was going on at the time that was written. So he says, bring the tithe into the storehouse that there may be meat in my house, says the Lord, and test me or prove me and see if I will not open for you the windows of heaven. So number 1, tithing is personal. He said, I'm going to open for you the windows of heaven. So it's an individual part of your relationship with God. But then what he says is going to happen is I'm going to pour you out a blessing. You're not going to have room enough to receive. See, nobody ever teaches what that blessing is.
Right.
That blessing that he's going to pour out, that's going to bring increase in your life, that's going to bring overflow in your life, is your purpose. It's your gifting. I believe it's his wisdom to execute your purpose, to operate in your gifting. And because the tithe has to come from somewhere, right? And so I'm going to give you creative ideas. If you know, I'm going to give you creative ideas, witty inventions, right? that you won't have room enough to receive. In other words, your ideas for getting wealth will never run out. And then he says, and I will rebuke the devourer for your sake. But see, we've only taught the tithing part, and then we jump down to the rebuke the devourer, and I'll protect the fruit. Now, this is where the revelation is. I'm going to protect the fruit. If there's fruit, that means I had to plant something.
Right.
I had to plant something for there to be fruit. And so if people are just working a job, then they're limited in what they can plant. Mm-hmm. But when you own your business, now you can make your field as big as you want it to be. But it goes back to, I'm going to open the windows of heaven. I'm going to pour you out a blessing. You won't have room enough to receive. Well, then that's what we're supposed to be planting. We plant our gift. We plant our purpose. We plant our business ideas. And then he says, I'll protect the fruit of your ground. So whatever I've given you to produce income for you, mm-hmm. it will be protected. And in your vine, which means I'm planting some, right? Your vine won't cast its fruit before its time in the field. So God is saying, I'm going to make sure everything that you start comes to full maturity. And we don't hear it taught that way in many places. And so that was what woke me up. I recognized, wait a minute, if I'm just working a job, I'm limited in giving. But right. Then I'm asking people, watch this, that have no financial skills to give beyond their ability. And so we start guilting people in giving, and I don't believe in it. We guilt people into giving, and people feel bad. And so now what happens? That relationship gets embedded. Now you have shame. Now you have fear. Now you have pride. Well, I'm going to look bad if I don't bring the toilet paper to the church, but I'm ashamed. I can't tell nobody I don't have toilet paper at my own house. I'm ashamed to let anybody know. And then you're ostracized if you come and ask for your light bill to be paid, So it's like catch 22. And this is what I want to deliver the church from. Like, I'm the pastor that's coming and saying, this is not right. Get your house right first. And if your house is right, then you're going to I don't think anybody has a problem giving. I think we've just created so much conflict around it and conflict around money, even in the church, that now we have all of this discord and disconnect over the principle when it's just the principle being taught out of order. Right. If that makes sense.
It does. It does make sense. And I was glad that I came to that revelation, but I know that was God for me, because I was already living paycheck to paycheck, robbing Peter to pay Paul. And now I'm giving out of things that I really don't even have to go home without. So in my mind, it kind of makes you say, okay, well, I don't want to go to church. I'm going to skip church because I ain't got no offering. Or, okay, obviously I can't participate in that because I can't give. And then it makes you feel bad as well. You got the anniversaries that come up, but you don't have no money to give your pastor, even though you love them. Yes. But that seems to be the only way at the time that we can show love is giving. When there's a lot of ways I can show my pastor I love her. A lot of ways, but we don't teach that. We don't teach that. And that is something that I think needs to be addressed to the people of church. I was at a conference. It was actually Brian Carn. It was the first time I had ever seen him, and my sons really wanted to go. So we went, but we were supposed to give, if I'm not mistaken, it was 20, because it was 2000. I think it was 2008. I think it was, and we had to give $20.08, and then we were going to be blessed. And I didn't have anything. I came out there on fumes, hoping for a blessing. But I remember saying, what about the people who don't have it to give? Are we not blessed? Does God not look upon us and love us? And that I struggled with that for a long time, because I'm like, I don't understand. I don't understand. You mean you don't love me if I don't give money, or I don't give enough money? Or out of all these people in this big old conference room, because I don't have $20.08, I don't get blessings, even though I used my fume gas to get out there. Even though I don't know what I'm gonna feed my kids when we're done, I pressed my way, but that's not enough because I don't have $20.08.
Wow.
So that bothered me later on as I became more over women and being in a leadership position. I'm like, I feel bad for the people who don't understand that come. Jesus, that's not Jesus asking you for that. The man had a certain amount of in his mind, and it is what it is. You know, whatever God told him, amen. But you can't, that's, you and God have to have a relationship. And this is what's important to me, and strong. You have to have your own relationship with God.
Yes.
Because we can hear all kinds of things. We do, and it presses on our heart. Of course we want to give. Of course we want to help. Of course we want to do. Of course we want to go. Of course we want to follow our pastors everywhere they go. Of course we do, but we can't.
Right.
And we have to know that that does not disrupt our relationship with God. Guess what? God loves me without my $20.08.
That's right.
Not only that, he has abundantly blessed me without that $20.08. He's kept me. He's kept my children. They're not hungry. My kids don't even look hungry. Right? It's just, it hasn't, even though there's been times I got off of work and I'm like, oh, well, let's see. Let's see what's going to happen. But that also taught me how to trust in God. We want to call grandma. We want to call my mama. We want to call JoJo and them. Learn to trust in God. Because in hindsight, I can look and see that every day that I didn't know what to do, he made a, oh goodness, he made a way.
Come on.
He did that for me when I thought I couldn't, because I had all these kids and they don't got no daddy, and I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I gotta work and I gotta be mama and I gotta go to church and I got the side business and I'm going to school. And I'm like, God, what am I supposed to do? But when I tell you, when you trust 100% in him, he can do it better than anybody can.
Absolutely.
Anybody can. The things that I had planned for my life, my financial updates and everything, it didn't even compare to what he had planned for my life. And when I tell you, when he does it well. Yes. I am so grateful to God. Everything is not a punishment. I try to tell people that the things that we have to endure or we go through, it's not necessarily a punishment. Some things we just have to learn. Some of us are just extremely hard-headed.
Tell the truth, right?
Because had they not made, like I said, had they not made me part-time, I wouldn't have sat down to write down what I was spending, how much was coming in, how much was going out. I wouldn't have I started extreme couponing. I thought it was fake. I'm like, I don't even want to watch it. I bet you I turned it on then. And I learned that it worked. I was feeding my big sons, mind you, they 16, 17, they're huge. You know what I mean? They were okay. They had their own rooms. Right. You know, I'm not saying, again, not a whole bunch of extra stuff, but they didn't know how
bad. You made it, right? Yeah, you made it. And that's the thing. You know, I remember years ago, I was listening to Steve Harvey, you know, on the morning drive somewhere. And that's one of the things someone had called in and asked a question. They had gotten married and the husband was allowing his grown children to stay in the house and they weren't working or contributing. And so, you know, the wife had a problem. And one of the things he said, listen, God puts us in situations where we all have to figure some stuff out. You know, nothing is given to us on a silver platter in most cases. And God wants us, he says, seek me and you'll find me when you seek me with your whole heart. So sometimes them situations put us in some seeking positions, right? You don't have no other choice but God. But I want to give your audience 5 things to look for, because we came up through the difficult times of that, where the education wasn't in the church. It wasn't in our school system. It wasn't in our homes, right? And so 5 things that my apostle taught me years ago that stuck. And I was like, wow, now I know what to look for in prayer. And when I'm seeking God, I know what I need to come out with. And one is that he's going to give you wisdom. Well, he's going to give you a plan of action. And I think that's what's missing. Faith without works is dead. So when we find ourselves against the wall, or we find ourselves in compromising situations and we don't know which way to go, then ask God, Lord, I need a plan of action. I need to know what to do. My light bill, is due here. I need a plan of action, and I can go ahead and get an answer on that one. The first one, if you're having financial struggles or whatever, is that budget. 80% of Americans do not budget. And that's one, and I don't use the word budget. I use the word financial plan. I call it your income matrix. You got to know, what do I have coming in and where am I sending it out to? Right. Because you don't control. If you're working a job, then how much is coming in is pretty much set. But where you're sending it out to is under your control. Now you can decide that, okay, my rent is too much. If I'm going to stay at this income level, then I can't have X, Y, Z. So one of the key things that I really encourage people to do is I help them increase their income. Because out of everybody I've sat down with 7-figure earners, I've sat down with high 6-figure earners, and I've sat down with the person that's on a fixed income. And the one common denominator between all of them is not having a financial plan to increase.
Okay.
That's the part. Most people don't have a plan to increase. And then number 2, when God gives you the plan of action, he's going to give you wisdom to execute that plan of action. Number 3, he's going to give you favor, uncommon favor. He's going to raise up people to use their power, their influence, their ability to either bless you with wisdom, bless you with physical resources, or bless you through networking, introducing you to somebody that you need to know. And then number 4, he's going to give you strength to endure. So we salute that all the single moms, all the one parent mother households that raise your children, and you made it through those tough times. I salute you. I celebrate you, because that in and of itself is a victory. And then number 5, he's going to give miracles, and miracles is when he suspends natural law. So the miracle could be somebody, like you said, I was hoping when I go to church, somebody might slip a 20 in my hand, or, bless me or whatever. But those are the 5 core things when you go in prayer that people need to look for God to give them. And that, I've been in church for years before I heard that. And I was like, oh, okay, that's what's missing. It's not going to just fall out of the sky. And we can't just hope and wish. And then I said, if prayer was enough, if prayer was all it took, then come on, every Christian in America should be multimillionaires, right? Absolutely. If God was just going to give it to us, but that's not what he said. He said, I've given you power, which means I've given you the ability to get wealth. So the fact that I have to go and produce it means it's in my control. And so when, people say, oh, well, I'm not into that prosperity gospel. I said, well, I'm not into the prosperity gospel either. I'm into the wealth gospel. And God said he gave me power to get wealth. So I believe his word, right? Now, we all have a choice to pursue the wealth or not pursue the wealth, but it's something that you have to pursue. And the last thing I'm going to say on the blessing, the one scripture that changed my life, Romans 5:17, I believe is somewhere in there. But it says, while we were yet sinners, God sent Christ to die for the ungodly. So you can't be no more blessed than that. No. That while you in your darkest place, right, your lowest place, God sent a savior to give his life and to redeem us from every curse and from every oppression of the enemy. And so I hate it when I hear, oh, we give and God gonna bless you. No, you already blessed. So we don't give to get a blessing. You're already blessed, right? But I give to get wisdom. I give to get a plan of action. I give to have the favor of God on my life. And I don't give under compulsion. That's the other thing. The scripture says God loves a cheerful giver. And so if all I can give God while I'm reprogramming myself financially and I'm in a bad place, I tell my clients, they get shocked when I say stop tithing. And they're like, huh? Stop tithing. Stop tithing. I said, well, yeah. So what do you think God would want you to do? Right? Because see, we've guilted people and we put people under condemnation over money because in a large part, money has been made the idol and it's replaced God, and people don't even realize that. So I tell them what I want you to do. I don't tell them to stop giving. So let's be clear. I don't tell them to stop giving. I tell them for a season, you need to stop tithing, but you need to always give to God first.
Right.
And so once I take them through their budget and we set their budget up and see what they have going, then we set an amount. And you need to be consistent with giving God this amount before you pay the mortgage, before you pay the utilities, before you pay anything. Honor God first, because the principle is seek first the kingdom and his righteousness. Okay, God, I'm seeking to be in right standing with you. So I'm going to always keep you in first place and honor you. But the blessing now comes in that I am working my way out of this hole. And I believe God gives us grace to do that.
Right. What are you've talked to a lot of women and you've been a financial educator for a very long time. What are some of the financial struggles that you see most that women face today?
The biggest one is not having a budget. That is the biggest one. The biggest one. And then when they sit down, I've had so many women just cry, like literally just cry when I show them their money because they're never looking at it. And they're working. They see their paycheck. Oh, my paycheck is X amount of dollars. But then they also see the stack of bills. Oh, I got to pay this. And this is where most people's mentality, I get paid, I got to pay. I get paid, I got to pay. And that's the program that most people are running on. Yeah. And they don't recognize that if you just sit down and take that first step and say, the number one way you can take control of your money is to sit down and look at it, create a plan for it. And so I call it dominating your money. And dominating it is I'm directing the money where I want it to go. Then the second thing I see is that most people don't have financial goals. They have financial dreams. I want to buy a house. I want to get a car. I want to go on vacation. I want to save X amount of dollars. But so they have a lot of wants, but they have not translated those wants into goals where they're saying, okay, this is the priority and this is what I'm going to start working toward. And so with my financial program, when I get them on that, show them and sit them down and we allocate their numbers, then all of a sudden they don't want to spend money anymore. It's like, no, I want to see my accounts grow. Right. I want to see these accounts grow.
But it's a different feeling. I remember at one point, they said, so I went through a credit repair program, and I think that's where the nickel and diming stuff, even with streaming services and the little bitty things. I was trying to tell my son, even us being late on bills cost us extra money. Them bank, you letting your bank overdraw, but it's costing you extra money. So why don't we start with that? Pay your bill on time. Yes. Let's start, because it really would be hard to do if you're not going to change it overnight. It's not going to change, and it won't look so big. When they say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
Do little things. Let's start with that. Pay your bill on time so you're not paying nobody's late fee. That's literally working and handing them the money. Here's a little extra for making me pay the bill. We don't want to do that. But one thing I see as a big struggle as well as we as a people, our people, we'd rather go spend it on the bag or the travel or the nails or the hair or whatever versus, okay, you know what? I'm going to slick all this up in a ponytail for a month and I'll put that hair money and that nail money over there.
Right.
I've noticed, I remember sitting in a, what is it called? A beauty supply store. I watched a girl pull up with a messed up tire. It was a fake tire, not a fake tire, a spare tire.
Spare tire.
It was a spare tire. This was bent in. It made noise when it pulled up, but what she got out of there was $500 worth of hair.
Yes.
And I remember saying to myself, I'm in the wrong business. Let me go find me some bundles of hair because it seemed like no matter what, we're going to do the hair. We're going to do the nails. We're going to, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I don't understand. The same with church. We go to these conferences and these conventions and we will pile up 10 to a room, spend our lunch money, our light money, our gas money, our rent to go to these church conferences. And then we come home looking like, duh, I don't have any food. And then you asking people, well, you know, my baby needs some diapers or this. And I'm like, but why not just don't go?
Right.
For once. I think the Lord will still love you if you don't go to the Kojic convention. It's okay. And I don't know how to help, I guess, until everybody understands. How do we help people understand that those things are not in, they need to prioritize.
Priorities. Yeah, that would be the next thing I would say. You got to set priorities. And until people are ready to invest in themselves, they're not, because they're programmed to immediate gratification. And it's something that I'm learning now, status. And I never thought of status in the way that I'm learning it now. But to your point, status, if I'm not at the conference, I lose status. And also, I'm dealing with someone right now. They have the home, they have the car, they have the status, the symbols of status. So let me correct. They have the symbols of status, but they're about $15,000 to the negative in their budget. And I'm like, how are you living? And I see this all the time. I've had people to come to me. I had one young lady. She said, well, you know, I'm a public figure, so I can't, because when I look at what can we cut out, the first thing I'm looking for with women is your hair, your nails, your pedicure, your spa day, because we've made self-care another marketing tool. I can take care of myself. I can run a nice bubble bath. I can, you know, I can light some candles at home. I can do a spa treatment at home. And then this is something I literally did when I started really taking my financial future serious. I stopped going to get my, you know, back then I wasn't getting nails done, but I cut back. I said, okay, I don't need to get my hair done every week. I knew how to do my hair, of course. But even for women who don't, okay, can we find a style that fits you, that is affordable while you work on this? We need to shift money around so that you can invest in where you really want to go. And I tell ladies all the time, pull out a bottle of $7 nail polish and you can still look good. So I'm not against that, but you've got to decide, is your future worth you looking good now? And then when you get into old age, you're looking for somebody to take care of you and they may not be there. That's not somebody else's responsibility. So yeah, priorities. We have to start setting priorities and creating platforms like this. So I appreciate you having this conversation. I believe and I declare even now that so many women are going to hear this conversation. And I'm going to do my best to get it out to everybody, because sometimes people need to just hear the conversation to wake up.
Right. Because that's what, like I said, if they don't know, they don't know.
They don't know. Yeah, they just don't know.
The time, what you're doing and what you've been, this could be the time where it tells people, hey, whoa, I need to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
One thing is back then when I was doing the budgeting was the nails. So I literally I cut out nails to where I didn't even care about them anymore. I went at least was 17 years. I didn't do nails no more until I got met. Well, started dating, and I was like, hold on, let me go be a girl for this.
I love it.
And you know what? And I love it. I know this is totally off the subject, but when I tell you God does things in his own time, I was such a boy mom. And I talk about it on the show all the time where I didn't even look in the mirror. I threw my hair in a ponytail. I got dressed, got them together. I'm cooking, make sure they got homework. You get in the car. Okay, you get in the, I didn't even pay attention to myself. And I remember getting to a point where I'm like, I didn't feel like a girl anymore. I really didn't. I just felt like a working mom.
And can I speak to that? Because you just hit a very, very a deep money emotion for women. And that is so many women don't see themselves.
No.
They're taking care of their kids. They're taking care of their husbands.
Right.
They're taking care of their jobs, whatever they do in the church, their community. Like women are always giving themselves away.
Yes.
And all the way back to the beginning when you said about the coffee, I bought the coffee for him, but I didn't buy the coffee for myself.
Right.
Because again, that goes to that programming, and it's not an either or. It's okay. We can have all of it. We can have both,
Right.
But women sacrifice so much. And I want every woman listening to this conversation to hear this. And I'm going to just give you a challenge. Just go stand in your bathroom mirror, or go, if you got a wall mirror that you can sit in front of, go and just sit in front of your mirror for about 15 minutes. Just look at you and ask yourself, girl, what do you want? Where are we going? Like, we don't have that conversation with ourselves. Where are you going? What are you doing? Like, what are you, 10 years from now, what do you want to look back? And I usually say at 80, when you're 80, what do you want to look back over your life and see? Let's start writing that story now. And one of the key components of making that story happen outside of your relationship with God is going to be money. It's going to be how you set yourself up financially to get to that place. And then when you're in that place, to be comfortable and say, I did it. I did it. And so right now I'm looking for women, 30, if they've started their career on up to even 65, like you still have time. And it's never too late. You got 80-year-old women out there that can still contribute a lot. So don't think age is a factor. And I think a lot of times women, we just deplete ourselves. And then you get tired. I want you to wake up. I want you to wake up, sister. I want you to wake up. You still got time to fulfill your dreams. Dream again. Dream big. And then let's make that dream a reality. That's what I'm after.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. We do pour it. I think I don't know if it's what we were taught or what we just picked up along the way, but to give of ourselves and not put back in. One thing I talk about with the cafe is dusty cups. We're pouring and we're pouring, but we have to learn to give from the overflow. That picture with the cup and the saucer, we only give what's in the saucer. You can't give what you are living on and what you're breathing on and what you're striving on. You give the extra, where we as women just keep pouring. Even if some dust, we'd be like, okay, here's a little bit more dust, take it all, and then we try to go figure out how to replenish ourselves, if we do. But sometimes it's an involuntary thing. You're gonna have to rest or take care of yourself. It's gonna be voluntary or involuntary.
Yes.
Because after we do so much, it's gonna be a coffin or a hospital bed. If you don't learn how to calm yourself down, sit down. When your body tells you to sit down and stop, sit down and stop. And I'm gonna be honest. I'm one of those hard-headed people. I am. I really hate that I am, because I feel like there's some lessons I had to learn that it wouldn't have been so harsh if I was not hard-headed. But I guess that's why, my son is hard-headed, because I guess it was me. But one of the things that I was doing, I was going, pouring, job, church, kids, everything. And I was at a conference getting ready to film Sisters Cafe. And I remember waking up, I felt so bad. But I'm like, we pushed through everything.
Right. Yeah.
Everything. But I got up. And it's funny because every time I listen to it now, you can hear it when it first comes on, where I say, shake it off, Gladys. Shake it off. Because I didn't know the mic was on already.
Oh, wow.
I was so sick. I thought I was going to throw up. I felt like it was crazy. But I did the whole show. The whole show like that. I went upstairs to take a nap. But bottom line, after a couple of days, things happening, I ended up with Bell's palsy.
Oh, wow.
My son was being funny because he thinks he's funny, but he was like, Mom, why are you blinking at me with just one eye?
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm like, what? And then it distorted. And the first thing we thought is I had a stroke. But I'm like, no, but do you know I still didn't go to the doctor? And I was, shake it off. Why? Like, I just did it. And then so it ended up, I'm in San Diego, but I got to get back to Louisiana. And so I did go to the doctor. They said it was Bell's palsy and vertigo. So I was dizzy, if you can imagine. I don't know if you know, but I was so dizzy. But when I tell you, I got on a plane. I still got on a plane like that, picked up my car from the parking spot and drove back from Dallas to Shreveport, dizzy.
Oh, my goodness. Oh,
and
wow.
I remember saying, okay, this is me. If I stay in the slow lane, and if I stay the speed limit, if I need to turn, I just have to turn really slow or else I'll spin. But I drove back like that. But when I got back to Shreveport, finally, I didn't make no stops. Got back to Shreveport, I pulled right up at the ER.
Wow.
And basically they blasted me out for what I had done, but I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know what else to do. But I remember telling God, so bottom line of all of that was stress. And I remember telling God, Lord, if you just give me my face back, like, I cannot. I mean, this eye wouldn't close. It was literally like this.
Oh, my goodness.
And I couldn't brush my teeth. Everything was coming out of my mouth. Nothing. Thank God we was wearing masks. That's the only thing that literally saved me.
Oh, wow.
But the thought of that's the way I was going to stay scared me. So I remember telling God, oh, I will rest.
Yes.
I will calm it down. So again, I want people to hear. Don't make them do something that big, to get attention when there's people telling you every day and telling you what they've gone through to help us. But I'm actually gonna have to let you go. I'm not even close to being done with you. So I would love to have you back on if you don't mind.
I would love to come back. I really enjoyed it.
It's so much. It's so much that you can help us with.
Yes.
You can help us with.
I definitely encourage everyone to get the book, Girlfriend, Let's Get Rich and Live. You can find that on Amazon. And you can just put my name in, Sonya Hamm. All of my books will come up on Amazon. And then social media. On Instagram, Sonya Hamm Empowers, and that's INPOWERS. And then on Facebook, I believe it's just Dr. Sonya Hamm.
Okay.
So those are the ways, yeah.
Okay, and then if we miss the Power Her Money stories, there's so many other. You have a whole program that we can be involved in.
Yes,
correct?
yes. So you can go to SonyaHammEmpowers.com and you can register for the different programs there.
Okay.
So those people that are charging you thousands of dollars and they're wiping stuff off your credit report overnight, well, those things are going to come back. Yeah. So a lot of people don't know. And so they're paying thousands of dollars. And yeah, it does solve the problem immediately, but it does not solve the problem long term.
I will be in touch with you because
Yeah.
I think we got a few more segments to do because it's good information and it's not talked about all the time. But I thank you so very much.
And thank you
for your
again.
time.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. Well, thank you.
Thank
And we
you.
will see you again next time for another segment of Sisters Cafe.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
I'll come through to pray for you.